In 1954, the average British housewife fed a family of 5 on less than £3 a week. £3. That is what some people spend on a single coffee today, and yet those families did not starve. They thrived. They raised children who built modern Britain on full stomachs and empty wallets. The secret was 30 dishes so cheap, so clever, and so filling that an entire generation survived on them without ever once feeling sorry for themselves. Number 17 on this list cost less than twopence to make and fed 6 people until they groaned. Number 8 was considered so common that middle-class families denied eating it, even though everybody did. And number 1 was so powerful, so deeply woven into the fabric of British survival, that forgetting it might be the biggest mistake modern kitchens ever made. These dishes were not gourmet, they were not pretty, but they kept a nation standing when the cupboards were bare and the ration books were thin. Before we start, hit that subscribe button, because what your grandmother knew about feeding a family on nothing might just be the most useful thing you learn this year. Let us count down the 30 cheapest dishes that kept Britain alive. Number 30. Bread and milk. When the larder held nothing else, mothers poured warm milk over torn bread, sprinkled sugar on top, and served it in bowls like porridge. It cost almost nothing. A pint of milk at 4p and 2 slices of bread from a loaf at 11p. Children ate it without complaint because the warm, sweetened milk softened the bread into something almost pudding-like. In homes where payday was still 3 days away, bread and milk was the meal that bridged the gap. No cooking required, no gas wasted, just warmth, comfort, and enough calories to send a child to sleep without hunger gnawing at their belly. Number 29. Dripping toast. That ceramic jar of beef dripping, golden and set firm, was the most valuable thing on the kitchen shelf. Mothers spread it thick on toast with a pinch of salt and called it tea. The jelly layer at the bottom, rich with meat juices, was the prize. Children fought over it. A whole week of dripping toast cost less than a shilling. It tasted of Sunday roast stretched across Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and beyond. Fathers took it to work wrapped in greaseproof paper, filling, savoury and free once the roast was paid for. Number 28. Onion gravy and bread. When there was no meat at all, mothers made thick onion gravy from a penny worth of onions, a knob of dripping flour and water. Poured over sliced bread on a plate, it became a meal. The onions were cooked low and slow until deep brown and sweet, creating an illusion of richness that belied the poverty of the ingredients. Children sopped up every drop with their bread crusts. In mining towns where strikes could last weeks, onion gravy and bread kept families from the breadline. Number 27. Tatty hash. Leftover potatoes, an onion, and whatever scraps of meat clung to yesterday's bone went into the frying pan together. Mothers pressed the mixture flat and fried it until the bottom turned crispy and golden. The whole pan cost pennies. Tatty hash appeared on tables from Glasgow to Cardiff, always on Mondays, always made from Sunday's remains. The crispy bits were currency at the table. Whoever got the most had won the week. Number 26. Porridge with salt. Before porridge became a health food dressed in honey and berries, it was survival. Scottish mothers made it with oats and water, nothing more, and served it with a pinch of salt. A bag of oats cost about 6p and lasted a fortnight. Porridge sat heavy in the stomach and kept children quiet through a morning of school. Some families poured the leftover porridge into a drawer, let it set firm, then sliced and fried it the next day. Nothing wasted, not a single spoonful. Number 25. Toast and sugar. When jam was gone and butter was rationed, mothers sprinkled sugar on hot buttered toast and called it pudding. Children believed it was a treat. The butter melted into the bread and the sugar crystals crunched between their teeth. It cost almost nothing, a few grains of sugar and a slice of bread. Yet for children growing up in post-war Britain, toast and sugar was as exciting as any sweet shop window. Some mothers dampened the toast first, so the sugar stuck better. A small kindness that children remembered for decades. Number 24. Peas pudding. Dried split peas simmered for hours with a ham bone until they collapsed into a thick golden paste. Spread on bread or served alongside boiled bacon, peas pudding cost pennies and fed the family twice over. The ham bone itself was often borrowed from the butcher and returned after use, the flavour extracted and the bone stripped clean. In the northeast, peas pudding was as essential as breathing. Mothers made it every week without variation because it worked. It filled bellies. It cost almost nothing. Number 23. Egg and chips. 2 eggs fried in dripping and a mound of hand-cut chips made from a tuppence worth of potatoes. That was tea sorted. The eggs ran golden across the plate and the chips soaked up every drop. In 1955, eggs cost about 4p each and potatoes were the cheapest vegetable in the country. Egg and chips demanded no skill, no planning, and no leftovers. It was the emergency meal, the fallback when everything else had been eaten. Every British child of the 1950s can close their eyes and taste it still. Number 22. Bread pudding. Not bread and butter pudding, mind. Bread pudding was its rougher, harder-working cousin. Stale bread soaked in tea until soggy, mixed with suet, sugar, mixed spice, and whatever dried fruit was lurking in the cupboard, baked in a slab and cut into dense, sticky squares. A whole tray cost less than a shilling and lasted the week. Children ate it from their hands in the street. Mothers wrapped slabs in greaseproof paper for school lunches. It was fuel, not elegance, and it tasted like survival sweetened with spice. Number 21. Vegetable broth. Every peelings, every carrot top, every cabbage stalk went into the pot. Mothers kept a stock pot simmering on the back of the range all week, adding scraps and water as they went. By Thursday, that broth had depth and body that no stock cube could match. Served with hunks of bread, it was a meal that cost virtually nothing because it was made entirely from things that would otherwise be thrown away. The Women's Institute published pamphlets encouraging this exact practice. Waste nothing, feed everyone. Number 20. Chip butties. Hot chips stuffed between 2 slices of white bread spread thick with butter. That was it. That was dinner. The bread soaked up the fat and the chips went soft inside their floury cocoon. A chip butty cost less than 6p and satisfied a hunger that nothing else could touch. In northern mill towns, chip butties were eaten standing up at the kitchen counter, too hungry to wait for a plate. Mothers made them when the wages had run out and the pantry was bare, simple, filling, and so cheap it bordered on free. Number 19. Tripe and onions. Honeycomb tripe boiled in milk with onions until tender. In Manchester alone, over 300 tripe shops served this dish in the 1950s. A portion cost a few pence and provided protein that most families could not otherwise afford. The smell divided households. Children gagged. Fathers ate in stubborn silence. Mothers persevered because the price was right and the nutrition was real. Tripe and onions was the taste of making do, of swallowing pride along with every rubbery mouthful. Number 18. Sardines on toast. A tin of sardines at 6p, mashed with vinegar and spread on toast, fed 3 children in under 5 minutes. The bones were soft enough to eat and rich in calcium. Mothers who knew nothing about nutrition knew sardines kept children strong. The smell of tinned fish under the grill was the smell of Thursday tea time in 1,000 terraced houses. Quick, cheap and honest. No pretense, just food. Number 17. Potato soup. Potatoes, an onion, water, salt, and if you were lucky, a splash of milk. Simmered until soft, mashed roughly in the pot, and served steaming. The whole batch cost less than 2p and filled every bowl at the table. In the winter of 1953, when snow buried the roads and deliveries stopped, potato soup kept whole villages alive. Mothers made it thick enough to stand a spoon in, knowing that thin soup meant hungry children by bedtime. Number 16. Corned beef fritters. Sliced corned beef dipped in a simple flour and water batter, then fried in dripping until golden. A single tin of corned beef at 1 shilling stretched to feed 6 when battered and fried. Children loved the crunch. Mothers loved the economy. The fritters appeared on tables across Britain whenever the meat ration ran thin, which was most weeks. Served with chips and a dollop of brown sauce, they passed for a proper tea that nobody complained about. Number 15. Jam sandwiches. 2 slices of white bread, a smear of margarine, and a spoonful of cheap plum jam. That was lunch for millions of British children throughout the 1950s. A jar of jam cost about 9p and lasted the week. It was portable, required no cooking, and kept children quiet until tea time. Mothers wrapped them in grease-proof paper and tucked them into satchels every morning. The bread went slightly soggy by noon, and the jam bled through the paper, staining fingers purple. Nobody cared. It was food, and food was not to be questioned. Number 14. Faggots and peas. Offal mixed with breadcrumbs, onion, and sage, shaped into balls and baked in rich gravy. A dish that turned the parts of the pig nobody wanted into something families actually looked forward to. In the Midlands, faggot shops dotted every high street, selling portions for pennies. The gravy was thick and dark, poured over mushy peas that had simmered since morning. Children ate with their hands when mothers were not looking. The taste was savoury, herby, and deeply satisfying. Faggots proved that poverty could still produce something worth eating. Number 13. Boiled bacon and cabbage. A cheap bacon joint soaked overnight, then simmered for hours with a whole cabbage wedged around it. The cabbage absorbed the smoky, salty pork flavour until it barely tasted like a vegetable at all. By 1954, bacon joints cost about 2 shillings and could feed a family for 3 days. Monday was the boil. Tuesday was cold slices with pickles. Wednesday was the scraps fried in the remaining fat. Nothing wasted. Nothing lost. Number 12. Bubble and squeak. Cold potatoes and cabbage from Sunday, mashed together and fried in dripping until the outside turned crispy and the inside stayed soft. Every Monday table in Britain bore a plate of bubble and squeak. The name came from the sound it made in the pan. Children protested. Mothers insisted. Fathers ate in silence, grateful for the crispy edges and the knowledge that another Sunday roast had been stretched to its absolute limit. Number 11. Toad in the hole. A few sausages buried in Yorkshire pudding batter and baked until golden and puffed. The batter stretched 3 sausages into a meal for 6. Flour, eggs and milk cost pennies, and the result looked like abundance, even when the meat was scarce. Children fought over the corners where the batter crisped against the tin. Mothers poured onion gravy over everything and called it a feast. In a decade defined by making do, toad in the hole made scarcity look like celebration. Number 10. Liver and onions. Lamb's liver fried fast in a hot pan with soft caramelized onions and thick gravy. Liver cost a fraction of any other meat. In 1955, you could buy enough to feed 4 for about 1 shilling. The iron-rich offal was recommended by doctors for growing children, and mothers who hated the taste of it themselves still cooked it every week. The trick was speed. Too long in the pan, and the liver turned to shoe leather. Done right, it was tender, rich, and deeply savoury, a meal that built strong blood and stronger memories. Number 9. Stew and dumplings. Scrag end of beef. The cheapest cut the butcher sold. Simmered for hours with root vegetables until the tough sinew dissolved into rich gravy. Suet dumplings dropped in during the final half hour swelled to twice their size, absorbing the meaty broth and turning a thin stew into a filling feast. The whole pot cost about 2 shillings and served 6. That heavy, floury dumpling sitting in dark gravy was the taste of Wednesday evenings across working-class Britain. Dense, warming, and impossible to finish without loosening your belt. Number 8. Bread and dripping. The starkest meal on this list. Cold beef dripping spread on bread, sometimes with nothing more than a shake of salt. In mining towns and city terraces alike, this was supper when there was nothing else. The dripping carried the ghost of Sunday's roast. That faint, meaty flavour pressed into white bread was all some families tasted of beef during the week. Mothers rationed the precious fat carefully, knowing it had to last until the next joint could be afforded. It was survival, plain and unadorned. Nobody romanticized it at the time. It was simply what was. Number 7. Sausage and mash. 2 sausages per person, a mountain of mashed potato and thick onion gravy. In the 1950s, sausages were more bread and rusk than meat, but nobody minded because the gravy covered everything and the mash filled every corner. A pound of sausages cost about 1 shilling and 6pence. Mothers could stretch them further by cutting each in half and hiding the evidence under gravy. The mash was made with a knob of margarine and a splash of milk, whipped until fluffy. Simple, cheap, and the most reliable midweek meal in the British kitchen. Number 6. Shepherd's pie. Cold leftover lamb or mutton minced through the hand grinder, mixed with onion and gravy, topped with mashed potato, and baked until the top turned golden and crispy. Shepherd's pie was the second life of Sunday's joint, stretched with potato to feed twice the mouths. A whole dish cost virtually nothing because everything in it had already been paid for. The smell of it browning under the grill meant Monday tea was sorted, and the weekend's roast had earned its keep one final time. Number 5. Spam fritters. Sliced spam dipped in batter and fried until golden. During rationing, spam arrived from America in blue tins that became as familiar as any British brand. A tin cost about 1 shilling and could be stretched into fritters for the whole family. Children loved the crispy coating. Mothers loved the simplicity. Fried in dripping with chips on the side, spam fritters were the weeknight meal that asked nothing of the cook but a hot pan and 5 minutes. They were not elegant, but they were reliable, and in the 1950s, reliability mattered more than elegance. Number 4. Corned beef hash. Diced corned beef fried with potatoes and onions until everything crisped at the edges and melded together in the pan. A single tin, shipped from Argentina and stacked in every corner shop, fed 5 when bulked with potatoes. The sharp metallic tang of the beef was unmistakable, and children either loved it or loathed it with no middle ground. Mothers added a fried egg on top if the budget allowed. Fathers ate it without comment, knowing that corned beef in the cupboard meant security when nothing else was certain. Number 3. Pea soup with a ham bone. Dried split peas simmered all day with a single ham bone until the soup turned thick, green, and almost solid. The ham bone, bought for pennies or saved from a previous joint, lent its smoky depth to batch after batch. In Durham pit villages, pea soup was fuel for men heading underground and comfort for families waiting above. A spoon would stand upright in a proper pot. Children dipped bread and asked for nothing more. The pot was never truly empty. Mothers simply added water and more peas, and the soup continued, an endless cycle of thrift that could stretch a single ham bone across an entire week. Number 2. Rice pudding. Short grain rice, milk, sugar, and a scraping of nutmeg, baked slowly until a golden skin formed on top. A dish so cheap and so loved that 7 out of 10 families made it every single week by 1955. The skin divided the nation. Some children fought for it, that caramelized, slightly chewy layer that tasted of burnt sugar and warmth. Others scraped it aside to reach the soft, creamy rice beneath. Baked in battered enamel dishes in ovens still warm from the day's cooking, rice pudding cost almost nothing and delivered everything. It was comfort conjured from 3 ingredients and patience. The spoon scraping the last mouthful from the dish was the sound of contentment in a decade that had precious little of it. And number 1, potato in every form, boiled, mashed, chipped, roasted, fried, baked, souped, hashed, and stretched into every single dish on this list. The potato was not just a side, it was the foundation, the hero. The reason British families survived the 1950s without going hungry. By 1952, the average person ate 6 to 8 potatoes per week. Mothers bought them by the stone for a few shillings, stored them in hessian sacks under the stairs, and built entire weeks of meals around them. Potato soup on Monday, chips on Tuesday, mash on Wednesday, tatty hash on Thursday, leftovers fried on Friday. The potato was the cheapest, most versatile, most reliable food in post-war Britain. It asked nothing but boiling water and returned everything. When the ration books ran thin and the wages ran out, the potato stood between a family and hunger. It was not glamorous, nobody wrote poetry about it, but without it, none of the other 29 dishes on this list would have been possible. The potato did not just feed Britain, it saved it. Here is the truth. Your grandparents did not have meal plans or food delivery apps. They had a sack of potatoes, a jar of dripping, and the knowledge that nothing could be wasted. Every dish on this list was born from that simple rule. Make it stretch, make it fill, make it last. Try one this week. Boil a ham bone with split peas. Fry leftover potatoes until they crisp. Spread dripping on toast with a pinch of salt. Then tell me your grandmother did not know something we have forgotten. Share which dish you are going to try in the comments. I want to know if anyone else remembers bread and milk before bed or toast and sugar after school, because these were not just cheap meals. They were the backbone of a generation that refused to go hungry. Your grandparents knew, now you know too.